Welcome back to part two of American Sharia, and I've got with me Courtney Turner again, and we are going to be talking about her two great articles on Substack. First one, Phoenix Conspiracy, right? And the second one was about Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I've had this idea because I've been seeing these trends, right? And like I said before, me and Courtney are experts at I see where this is going, right? And if
Yeah.
we can appeal to you to not go in this direction, that would be awesome because I just see tyranny and everything that is happening like this week and last week. It's just getting crazy. DC is now going to be a federal city. We don't know yet. The command of it's been taken over by Donald Trump, and we are just witnessing unprecedented things every single day. So I brought Courtney to help me make sense of this all because she also connects these dots that are seemingly far apart from each other, but they are coalescing into something very scary. What did we call it last time? The enchilada of doom?
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yes.
last time we
It does
left
seem
off,
that way.
yeah. We were talking about Christian nationalism, and we brought up Doug Wilson, and lo and behold, he made it to CNN just like 2 days after we brought up that topic. And then he was all over social media for several days because he's calling for Christian nationalism. And you were writing in your Phoenix article about Stephen Wolfe, who wrote Case for Christian Nationalism and his call for a Christian prince. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he wants to subvert the Constitution so we can have a monarchy. I mean, that seems to be the common theme with all these people. It's just he wants a Christian monarch,
Mhm.
which yeah, it's a subversive movement. I would argue it's not even really all that Christian because they want to force people into this. And I'm pretty sure one of the first tenets of Christianity, I mean, I don't know, I'm no expert, but like I think it's free will. So yeah,
Yes.
well, if you're forcing people to subscribe to your version of your interpretation, then that's not free will. So yeah, and the First Amendment is actually freedom of religion. I know a lot of people think it's freedom from religion, but it's actually freedom of religion. That isn't the First Amendment, and it's because the founders were, I mean, in part, but largely they were, they were escaping the Anglican Church, which
Hmm.
was a theocracy,
Hmm.
and they didn't want to repeat that. So it's great
Hmm.
if people come to that of their own accord, and I'm all for people choosing that path, but to be forced into that path and to subvert the Constitution to do it, I think bad things are going to come of that.
No, and I think what they want to do is make the world in their own idea, their own image of what they think Christianity is and what it should be. And it's very far away from historical Christianity, right? And so
I
we're going to say some things that people may disagree with, they may agree with, but it's going to be all over the place because you can't pin us down because we're not, uh, you know, extreme ideologues. We're just reasonable people. And so he's calling for a Christian prince. And I wanted to start off with saying, a monarchy is blessed in our worldview. If they
Mhm.
are righteous, if they're upright, if they're virtuous, if they're not tyrannical. The Byzantine Empire was the first Christian empire, and it lasted a long, long time, like almost 1,000 years. So it was a very stable society. A lot of
Mhm.
technological progress, a lot of quality of life you see improving under this Byzantine monarchy. And so, yeah, a monarchy can be a blessed thing. We say heaven is a kingdom, and we say on earth as
It's
it
not
is in
on
heaven.
Earth.
Right. Yes, Christ's kingdom is not of this world exactly, but we do try to emulate these ideas like on earth as it is in heaven. So they say when you get married, you're a representative of a king and queen of your household. And that's how you think of yourself. You have self-respect, you're royalty now. You have sovereignty. You're not a
Hmm.
slave to sin or the devil or your passions, these kinds of things. You're uplifted and now you're like a royalty of the universe. So, an upright and a righteous royal family can be an icon for society. It can be a good thing, right? And
Sure.
many saints have been kings, queens, emperors, empresses, this type of thing. So, it's not that we hate monarchy or the idea of this type of government. But we are seeing subverters trying to usurp what we already have in place and put their ideas in place forcefully. Okay, so in history, the only way we got a Christian monarchy was like 300 years of martyrs, right? It was
Yes.
not an uprising, a military uprising.
Right.
Right. It was a natural thing. So you have so many people converting that like, okay, this is our way of life now. So, rulers, emperors, kings, and queens, they can become saints. And then in the Old Testament, there's also the idea of king where the Israelites wanted an earthly king, and God said, "No, I will be your king." But they're like, "No, we want a man king." So they got King Saul, and
Mm.
then it was just a bunch of problems. Um, so this is kind of what the ideas that people are teasing out, but they are also marrying it. And Courtney does such a good job laying all of this out into technocracy and tyranny, and exactly the opposite of what you think, a Christian nation would act like, right?
Yes. Well, and my biggest concern is all of this lead to the eradication of free will.
Hmm.
And that, I mean, that's really, if we were just to boil it down, like in a,
Mhm.
nutshell, that's my biggest concern with all of this is that it's the eradication of free will. So some of it sounds great, and some of these people may even be well intended. They may really think that they have the best vision for the path forward for humanity, but unfortunately, humans are flawed. So their vision will not be perfect, no matter how great they think it is.
Hmm.
Um, and it just seems like all of these paths lead to technocracy, which will erode technocracy and transhumanism, which will erode free will. And it's very interesting to me because I think it was like my first episode. I talked about how, they were they who were socially engineering the masses towards a transhuman and technocratic, leading to a post-human future where we would all live in like a, neo-feudal society.
Hmm.
And at the time, I didn't really know a whole lot, but it's like the more layers I peel, the more true that seems to reveal itself to be. So unfortunately, but yeah, it really boils down to free will. And humans don't always make the best choices, but that's the hope is that you will use that gift of free will, which I do believe is the greatest gift that humans were endowed with.
Hmm.
And you will use that gift in order to be a vessel and a conduit for virtue and morality. And that is what, biblically speaking, that's what God wants. It's also what Satan wants. That's why they want you to opt into your own tyranny. They
Hmm.
want you to choose, light or dark. But Brave, what's the saying? Like he doesn't like lukewarm, he spits it out. So
Hmm.
yeah, but what I'm seeing is that all these paths really do lead to the erosion of free will. And we're incrementally inching towards that, the erosion of free will, with all of this conditioning and programming and brainwashing. And now we have the cybernetic feedback loops that are, yeah, the algorithmic cybernetic feedback loop. So people are, giving away all their data, which is then programming them. And little by little, we seem to be inching towards the erosion of free will. So
Hmm.
that's just for me, that's the biggest concern.
Well, I mean that is at the heart of what we're talking about, free will, because
Mm.
one of the ways they are trying to open up the Constitution is by getting everybody to agree that we need to repeal the 19th Amendment, which is how we got the vote for women, right?
Yep. Yep.
So whether or not you vote or you think that's good or bad, uh, the reason why they are pushing that is so that they can open it up. And while they're in there surgically doing things that they can put in these new policies and just tighten the grip on people and
Yeah.
controls. We're going to get into that with the AI and women. So, Well, let's just talk about
Yeah.
the strong boys for a second because you mentioned the Gundo boys. Is that what you were calling them
Yeah,
in?
the
Okay.
Gundo Bros.
So the
They're in
Gundo
El
bros.
Segundo, California. That's why they call them the Gundo Bros. But
So we talked about those guys last time, and then Charlie Kirk, he just called Trump the least feminine president
hmm
we've ever had. And
yeah,
I was just like, how are you gonna quantify that? Because I mean, Teddy Roosevelt was pretty masculine with, or
sure.
those Rough Riders and people that actually went to war and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know really what you're getting at here, trying to like what I'm seeing is the genderization of virtue, which is becoming really strange to me. The worship of the strong boys and the masculinity, and even Jay makes fun of these guys. They've had him in the Protestant world forever. Like they rip
hmm
phone books in half, and like throw kettlebells around for Jesus and stuff. And it gets really silly. But then when you start to peel back these layers, you find, okay, so here's something I found. Positive Christianity. So this was a movement in the Nazi Germany
hmm
era, and it was a religious movement that promoted the belief that racial purity of the German people should be maintained. They had elements of the Nicene Christianity, but it was just basically like a white nationalist Christian party. And here is the emblem of that. So you've even got the swastika in the flag.
Oh yeah.
So the stuff we're talking about is not very new. It's like they
No.
roll out the same techniques all the time. We follow their same stuff. But this like Gundo bro attitude, it reminds me of a book I read called this Pink Swastika. And it also reminded me of the Vikings where they had this thing called erge, where feminine women or men that they deemed to act feminine are executed or, burned or stoned or exiled or shunned. Um,
Wow.
and this isn't the only culture, but yeah, you can look it up. Viking ergi. So if they, let's say you were a, Scandinavian who had recently converted or something, and you didn't want to go with your mates to uh, pillage a monastery or a village or, rape, kill, and destroy and steal, then you were deemed feminine and you could be, open to punishment or whatever was the consequence of the time. So it's like, what
It's
is going to
crazy.
be feminine in the future? Is it going to be feminine to just display any emotion whatsoever, to hold hands with your loved one, to, it's so ambiguous.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is, but it's also, I feel like, the way I described it in the Phoenix Conspiracy article is that they use archetypes to operate through the left and right Hegelian paths. So I think they have to like blow it into the extreme version. So the right, which is what they're operating through right now, quote unquote, the right wing, because Trump is ostensibly Republican, although, I mean, he's been a lifelong Democrat until he ran for president, but, minor details. Um, but he's, right winger Republican. So they're accentuating and highlighting like the masculinity, the patriarchal, muscular, like disciplinarian, authoritarian kind of archetype. It's the archetype of that, but they blow it into these extremes so they can ram it down your throat. And
Hmm.
I think the left does the same thing. It's the divine mother, the Mother Earth, and it's very spiritual and yeah, the nurturing, all emotion driven, which
Hmm.
the right, argues they're very rational and logical. It's very linear. But it's really archetypes. I mean, so it's not based in reality because this isn't really how reality works, right? Reality is about its integration, its relationship, it's operational. Like how does it function?
Hmm.
So there are men who sometimes they cry,
Hmm.
and it doesn't make them girls,
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like sometimes there are things that happen and they cry.
Hmm.
But to make that like the definition of what a man is, It's just absurd. We have that on the one extreme, and then on the other extreme, we have like, oh, there's no such thing as a man or a woman. You can be whatever, you can be a furry. It's just absurd. They want to take away any distinction of any real definition of anything
Hmm.
to blur all the boundaries.
And let's not forget the apocalyptic thinking that goes into these types of things because first of all, they are skirting the free will with their really rigid gender roles. Like women can only be mothers or this or that, and men can only be the breadwinner. Um,
Right.
so they're already like brushing up against taking away freedoms and free will.
Hmm.
And, let's not forget the Bavarian Illuminati that we always rail against. They were anti-monarchical and anti-religion.
Yep.
So it gets really, there's a lot of weeds to go through. And with the apocalyptic thinking, that opens it up to a whole nother thing because now we can have a fake rapture, we can have a tribulation, we can have a blue beam second coming. There's all kinds of psyops that can be orchestrated in this framework of like, it's going to be a rapture, tribulation, end times. So catastrophes,
And
world wars, Zionism, earthquakes, famine, pestilence, all of this stuff. The John Hagee blood moons, right? The blood moons of.
yeah, well, and isn't that what Peter Thiel was doing? Right? He's talking about the Antichrist and, and he totally inverted it because he kept saying how the Antichrist will bring about, like the peace and, like that's the blissful time. But that's not, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that's not actually what the Bible says. The Bible says that the people will perceive that before you have these like ruptures, right? Before you have that the tribulation, the really difficult times, they're
Mhm,
going to perceive it as this is like peaceful, blissful experience. But that's not the Antichrist bringing that. He's bringing the difficult times to come after that. But the way Peter Thiel explained it was that the Antichrist comes to bring the peace.
mhm.
He kind of inverted it. Yeah.
Have you heard the rumors that Donald Trump wants to hand over DC to Peter Thiel in
I've
this?
heard this rumor. I mean, it would not surprise me. I don't know whether he's aware of it, but whether he's aware or not, that is essentially what he's doing. I
Hmm.
mean, with the deal with Palantir and Anduril, and I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but the all the defense contracts that they're doing, he is essentially handing it to Peter Thiel on a silver platter. So whether or not he's doing it, like intentionally or not, that is the result. So
Hmm. And even the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he
exactly.
tweeted this week, all for Christ, all for life, and he is 100% behind Doug Wilson.
Yes, he's a member of that CREC church. Yeah,
From
it's
Moscow,
crazy.
Idaho, CREC. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I read a paper that someone sent me about Doug Wilson's theology, and it is not orthodox. It's
No.
very heretical, they would say. So this essay, if you want to look it up, it's called Theological Concerns About the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches, the CREC, by Jeffrey Moss, 2024. So, yeah, good buddy Doug Wilson made it to CNN. Everyone is now discussing this. And and I'm like, now I have to look into this seriously because it's becoming mainstream. I mean, me and Courtney can get up here in tinfoil hat, but then it becomes real
I know.
the next
I've
day.
heard stories of people who have been like in his church or affiliated with his church, and they were like kicked out for asking too many questions. And he's got these weird ideas about like women can't work. So like even if they're a single parent per se, and they're obviously they need to put food on the table, right? To raise their children. These things happen. I'm not saying it's ideal to be a single parent, but things happen in life. And but he says that they shouldn't work. So they build this kind of like community, and it sounds great. Like, oh, great. Like the church will step in. Theoretically, that's what a church community should do, right? Step in to help the community, help the members of the church. But they had all these kind of like So essentially it becomes indentured like servitude.
Hmm.
So in return, like
Hmm.
they would get money and help, but then they would have to be at the beck and call and like, serve, which a little strange. I don't
Techno-feudalism.
know.
Well, it's like church feudalism,
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounded like to me. I
right?
mean, I didn't experience this firsthand, but I've heard the stories and I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, so before you Theo bros start to say Doug Wilson is based and trad, let's just go over some of the facts here. So this is a Protestant religious association founded only in 1998 by Doug Wilson. It's got 130 congregations in the US and 10 other countries. They are semi-independent, so there is no authority, there's no discipline, there's no patriarchy, there's no
Mhm.
apostolic succession. They are not answering to anybody but their own cult. And they are also guilty of heresy. So when Jay gets on here for hours and he's warning you and making fun of Protestants, and everyone's like, oh, Jay's so mean, we shouldn't do that. This is, these are the people he's talking about, like wackadoodles that want to take over and force you to do things, right?
Yeah. I don't know if all Protestants are like that, but this
Not
is a
all of
very
them, but like,
representation.
yeah,
Like
these
this
are
is not good.
the cult type
Yeah.
that we are going for because they are actually hurting people. So these wacky cabals, they affirm some forms of the doctrines of semi-Arianism. They promote a teaching that the divine person of Christ is the eternal feminine principle within the Godhead. So they've got a lot of weird power trippy ideas about what's going on in the Trinity because I mean Doug he never attended seminary, he never went to Bible college, he was never
Wow.
ordained anywhere. He just founded this whole thing all by himself, including a college called New St. Andrew College in Moscow, Idaho. And
So he's like a self-appointed guru.
yes. He thinks of himself as like the next John Calvin or something.
Right.
And in their thing called their Book of Confessions, they claim to adhere to four creeds, the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, the Athanasian Creed, and the Council of Chalcedon. But the Nicene Creed that they adhere to includes the Filioque. I know a lot of you people don't understand what this means, but basically in the Nicene Creed, what sets it apart from the way the Catholics say it is called the filioque. We don't have to talk about that. But Doug Wilson includes the filioque, which is not orthodox. So that should be a red flag for you guys. And so there was this conference, and the title of the conference that they had in 2002 was called The Federal Vision.
Oh, I
Yeah,
don't know this.
all the way
What?
back in about 23 years ago in 2002 they had the Federal Vision, which became the Joint Federal Vision Statement, and it affirms several Calvinist teachings that contradict orthodoxy. He advocates a version of eternal subordination of the Son to the Father. So this is what I was getting out of this scholarly article about the theology of the CREC. So they say that the Son is always in submission, and the Holy Spirit are lesser entities, and they are eternally subservient to the Father.
Huh.
And he also equates the God the Father as the man and God the Son as the feminine. That's not orthodox. So when he's writing
That
books
that
about
almost
like,
sounds hermetic.
it kind of does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Interesting.
heretical, it's pretty wacky, and this is where he gets the idea that like women have to like eternally be into submission to men because this is like what how he views the Trinity. And this is what he's
Right.
preaching in his church. Like women have to be like Christ and submit to God the Father. So he implies that Christ is some kind of like eternal divine feminine when he talks about authority and being masculine and feminine dynamics. So weird stuff going on there. He thinks that the worship of the Trinity means exalting the Father's authority, the Son's nativity, and the Spirit's communion. And that is right out of the CREC. So just weird, weird ideas about
Yeah.
that.
And where does he get this idea that Christ is the feminine? I mean, that
Because
almost
that's the
sounds like Christ
submission,
consciousness.
that's the submissive role in his mind is the
You know,
son submits to the father, woman submits to the man. So in that way, it's like,
it almost sounds like Christ consciousness, like Blavatsky or Bailey.
hmm. And that's what we're talking about. This is not going to be a Christian nationalist movement. It's going to be a Christian
Right.
TM
Quotes,
nationalist
air
movement,
quotes.
right?
Yes.
There's plenty of tea on Doug Wilson. There's one article called Just the Facts, and it's just scandal after scandal in that church. And you know,
Yeah.
these guru churches, these mega churches, they're just rife
Yes.
with sex scandals. One of the
Yes.
biggest ones was they match made a young lady at their church with a convicted serial PDF file of over
Hmm.
25 children and told them that she had to marry him so that he could not do that
I,
anymore.
I keep hearing that too. Yeah. He's marrying off these alleged, yeah, accusers,
Hmm.
which is horrifying. So it's like these women are now just supposed to be subject to whatever potential abuse.
Yeah, they
And
got to
you know,
submit.
it's a holy matrimony. I don't know. That somehow sanctifies it. It sounds horrific to me.
I mean, one of these cases, they even had to get special permission from the court to cohabitate after they were married and had children. And then he also, after that, admitted to being aroused by his own children. So this is not the stopgap measure that they think it is, marrying off PDF files to nice young women and having children and making a family, because that's not how you fix it.
No,
Right.
no. Well, and what about the children? I mean, I would think that isn't somebody supposed to be looking out for them? That
Well,
sounds like they're perpetuating a potential
that's what I was
tragic
getting at
occurrence.
last time. I don't think they even care about children in the real world. I think they care about hypothetical things. And I think this is a big power trip. Literally, it's a huge
Yeah.
power trip of men over women. So that's Doug Wilson. There's no end to wacky quote memes going back many, many years. You can pull up this. Let's see if I can find it on Twitter. Courtney, say something smart while I look for this thing.
Say something smart while you look
Yeah.
up for. Yeah. Well, I think in the other case, the Epstein case, I think all of that scandal, as horrible it is as it is actually a cover and a smoke and mirror screen for something even worse, which I think is the potential eradication of human species.
I do too.
But yeah,
And I
which,
think this is,
that's not to undermine what's going on with the PED, files, but I think that the much more significant uh, story is really that what they're studying would lead to the extinction of humanity.
well, it goes perfectly with the PDF files because one
Yeah,
of the
that's true.
things they want to do when they get into the Constitution and unlock it is lower states' age of consent. So they want it lower and lower.
Yes,
Ideally, menstruating girls will be, available for impregnation
right,
as soon as
right,
they are biologically ready.
right. Which these days is becoming younger and younger because of all the like estrogenetic toxins. Yeah. So
Hmm.
that's pretty, yeah. Just because the what is that doctor, I'm gonna blank his name, but Jurassic Park, like your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they didn't stop to think whether they should.
Hmm.
Yeah, Ian something. Yeah.
Isn't that one of their mottos, like move fast and break things, right?
The what?
The Technocrats mottos, one of their mottos is move fast and
Yes,
break things.
that's it. That came from Zuckerberg,
Mm.
Facebook.
Hmm.
That's his motto. And yeah, they've all adopted it. Yeah, move fast and break things.
So if you're looking for some more unsavory facts about Doug Wilson, it's called Doug Wilson, Just the Facts, Ma'am by Kaylee Triller Harms, and there's plenty of scandals to sink your teeth into. But let's get to Jeffrey Epstein because that's what we are going to be talking about. Your article tonight, Epstein and the Technocrats.
Yes.
Um, did you happen to see New York Times article this week, a look inside Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan lair?
No.
So it's
Never heard of
very Podesta coded. The artwork is very Pizzagate-like.
it. Ooh.
So the entrance of his Manhattan place is lined with dozens of prosthetic eyeballs.
Ooh.
There's a sculpture of a bride clutching a rope in the atrium that looks kind of like that. Do you remember that sculpture that they had of one of the Dahmer's victims, like in Podesta?
I don't know if I do.
Oh man, it
If-
was gnarly. So here is what's hanging up in Epstein's atrium. Where is this?
wait.
That weird, right? Like what is
Oh,
that?
yeah. What is that?
It's a bride on a rope.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So you've got the eyeballs, you've got the bride. That reminds me of Haunted Mansion. In the dining room is a shrine to all of his high-profile connections. So he's got personal pics with Pope John Paul II, Mick Jagger, Fidel Castro, Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Donald Trump, and Melania, which this one cracked me up because it was the photo that we've all seen of Epstein, Trump, Melania, and Ghislaine, but he had cropped out Ghislaine and just zoomed in on the three of them. And I'm like, that's such an Epstein thing to do. It's like crop out
That's
your,
funny.
yeah.
Well, she was known for like photobombing, so
Hmm.
she would just show up in pictures.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
was definitely a pick me, pathetic kind of character.
Yes.
Not only that, multiple selfies of Steve Bannon throughout the house. In
Yeah. Well, no surprise there. I mean, his fingerprints are all over the place. It's
Mhm.
crazy.
uh,
And I really think he's the one behind Brock Pierce because he took over the company, right? Brock was like 20 years old at the time, and he's this Bitcoin pioneer, and he was advising Epstein on cryptocurrency. He
mm,
was advising him on like Bitcoin. And then Bannon takes over the company, becomes CEO. And I mean, Brock was like a child actor. I mean, it was just a very, I feel like it was kind of a construct. I
mhm.
mean, I can't prove that obviously, but then he goes down to Puerto Rico and his house is like in Roosevelt on the naval base. And Steve Bannon is, Office of Naval Research. And yeah, I don't know. There's some dots there. We'll just say that.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of dots. There's too many.
Yeah.
Um,
They look a little connected.
well, check this out. He has the first edition copy of Lolita on display in his office. Now, if you don't know,
Wow.
yeah, so that's pretty much the PDF files,
Yeah. Well,
book.
also Epstein, what was it? He was a college dropout. He ends up teaching math and physics at Dalton High School in New York City. And it was Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr, who hired him. And then Donald Barr writes this book. It's called Space Relations. And it's where these aliens, extraterrestrial beings come, and it's very like I don't know. It's very reminiscent of Epstein and Maxwell and Ghislaine. They're like trafficking humans,
Yeah.
and so there's this whole book, Space Relations, which is selling on Amazon for like 400 something dollars, actually.
Oh, it's a
Um,
thousand now, Courtney.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow! I have
It's,
a copy.
do you really?
Yeah, Patrick Byrne actually bought me the copy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really cool because I was telling him all about it, and he was like, "Oh, well, I'll give you a copy so we can look into it." But yeah, and then he sets Epstein up at like a hedge fund type of, I don't know if it was a hedge fund or a mutual fund, but some sort of a financial fund, and he only deals with like multimillionaires. like his first year in, which
Hmm.
is very strange. Usually, if you go through this like grueling, basically internship where you're working all hours of the night as an iBanker,
Hmm.
you don't start off managing like multi-million dollar high profile people, but Epstein did. So,
Well, this is where the space babies come in, and I'm glad you brought up that book because it's a lot like the science fiction that a lot of Manosphere bros are following the script of with the human TRAFF and the harems, space
mhm.
harems of your babies, because where they're going with this is they don't want women at all. They don't want to deal with
Right.
women at all, and but they know that what did he say? Women are the type of people that people come out of.
He said that yes, they're the type of, and yeah,
Yeah.
they're just utilities, you
Yes.
know.
So this transhumanism and the transgender movement, stepping stone to that is just going in the direction of artificial wombs. And this is, I'm telling you guys the climax because this is why I'm calling it American Sharia and just the commodification of a woman's body.
And
And
I just wanted to, before you finish that, I just want to tell you so China developed a pregnancy robot that's capable of giving birth to like a live baby.
mhm,
And this was from the Daily Mail really recently. I know they have like the ectolife pods and whatnot, but this is really creepy. They're talking, this was, yeah, it was August 15th. So yeah, yesterday. So they're
yeah.
talking about like a live robot in China, what is going to give birth. So yeah, you're right. They're completely eradicating women or out because they're the kind of people that people come out of, but they don't need them anymore because now robots can do that.
Exactly. Now AI can do whatever you need it to do. And Mexico this week just makes biometric identifier mandatory for all citizens. I didn't know if you saw that article or not.
They meant what? They made
They made biometric identifier mandatory for all citizens in Mexico.
Mexico did, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that. They've been pretty far ahead on a lot of that already. Like you have like a digital ID to enter any bank. So
Hmm.
essentially to do any kind of transaction. Sweden's really far ahead on all that stuff though.
Mm.
Sweden, it's illegal to have cash. But you know who has cash?
Immigrants.
The criminals.
Oh, criminals.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's like the guns, you ban guns, but somehow the criminals all manage to get them.
Yeah, isn't
Yeah.
that funny? So, what
Mm,
we're talking about, and with this article, the Epstein transhumanist conspiracy is a dystopian nightmare of genetic engineering, AI overlords, and what you say, spiritual eugenics. And I couldn't agree more. Um,
mm,
and the beginning of this article starts off with what is the last question,
yes.
right?
What is the last question? This is part of the Edge series, the annual question. I think it started in 2015. I don't remember exactly what year. But yeah, he did this like the Edge Foundation. This is John Bronfman, he was a literary agent who brought together all of these people so they could have these salons. They had like billionaires dinners. They were actually called the billionaires dinner.
Hmm.
And it wasn't just scientists. I mean, there were obviously a lot of very, top-notch, like well-respected, high-esteemed scientists and academic researchers. But it was also like celebrities and sports players, just really like very influential people, which it really was just an influence operation to get these people together. And they would have an annual series where they asked like the final question for humanity. And
Hmm.
of course, in 2018, we've got the Weinstein brothers both participating in this final question. And
And
what's really weird is Brett's question. Normally when you go and look at it, like you'll see like a whole conversation they post, under the question. Brett's question is the only one that just has the question, which is
mm.
very strange to me. I don't know what that means, but it's odd. I don't know.
And
It either means they scrubbed the answers or the discussion, or it means that it was somehow like a covert, yeah, thing from the beginning.
so the question was, can humans set a non-evolutionary course that is game theoretically stable,
Yes,
right?
which is game B.
Game B. And then the second follow-up question is, does something unprecedented happen when we finally learn our own source code? So not only are they trying to unlock the Constitution so they can get in there and rearrange things, they're also trying to unlock our DNA so they can get
Yes.
in there and rearrange things, right?
Yes. It's very convenient, yes. And Eric even does, I think it was with Lex Friedman, but he talks about, I don't quote me on that, but I think it was Lex Friedman podcast, but he talks about this, learning our own source code. And he said it would be our Skynet moment.
Hmm.
And so he's a little concerned about it. Yeah, I mean, nothing to worry about
Oh
here.
no, Skynet, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah. But I love when these guys tell you like they're a little concerned because it's like the qualifier, right? Like, okay, we're a little concerned. Well, but we're going ahead. This is what we're doing. Yeah. So,
So,
but he called it the Skynet moment. So
which is the Terminator, right?
it's the Terminator and it's
Yeah.
also the noosphere, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
We're all interconnected. They're creating the collective intelligence.
Yeah, and another like tangent is now they're using our bodies as nodes,
They are.
right?
Yeah, so this when I go here, people kind of, they call me the crazy conspiracy theorist. I'm kind of used to it. It's okay.
Well,
But
you're in good
what I
company here, so.
yeah, well, I think good. But what I encourage people to do is look at University of Amherst, Massachusetts. It was a few years ago. It was like I think it was back in 2020, actually. They talk about 6G and they talk about 6G using humans to harness as an antenna. So then you team that up with the IEEE, right? They're doing all this research on the Internet of Nanobio things. They're doing research on sensory nodes. You can also look up a WBAN, WBAN, and then you can look up, I won't say it out fully just for, the purposes of being here. But if you look that up, look it up also under that 2020, illness and the medical areas. And this is where they were doing a lot of experimentation on this. And then you can also look up all the universities it's around the world that are studying both the Internet of Nanobio things and the Internet of the sensors. So that's what the wearables are going to be, but they have light technology. So they don't even need like you to be wearing anything. They can do it through, they have like a reader so it can, take an image of your face and then flash light at you, and it can read your temperature. Like that's just one example, but that's
Hmm.
how accurate this type of biometric data mining is. And that technology is well underway. I mean, that's not like predictive or like speculative at all. They have that technology. They're using that technology. So I just like I'm just trying to give people like actual data points they can go research because I know it sounds so crazy to people. They're like, this is just crazy science fiction whenever I go there. But this is really Humanity 2.0. You can look that up too. That's a whole organization. And I looked up because when I was doing this article, I found that, Humanity Plus. Humanity Plus used to be called the World Transhumanist Association. And I was trying to see if there was any, connection to the Humanity 2.0. The only connection is Harvard University. Harvard University is working with Humanity 2.0 organization, which is totally transhumanism, but they're working with them on what they call the Human Flourishing Project. And I don't think their version of human flourishing is quite what you and I might think of as human flourishing, but
Hmm.
yeah, so.
Do they even have definitions for anything that we would agree with? I don't know.
Well, I'm working on I've been under the weather, but I'm working on a companion glossary to this article so
Uh-huh.
that people can see what the words that they might think it means, and then they can see what it really
Oh,
means.
good. Yeah, we
Yeah,
need that because even I was reading it and all these big words were making me mad. And I'm like, I don't understand this, so I'm going to take it as disrespect. Not from you, but from them, like all these think
sure.
tanks. I'm
Yeah.
like, what even is this? Okay, so because right now they think that we're in what's called game A, which is the current zero sum system, or otherwise late stage capitalism.
Yeah.
And we're trying to transcend into game B with the Omni win, where
Yeah.
everybody is winning all the time. Uh, a world where decentralized autonomous organizations replace corrupt governments.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And this is really, really important for people to understand. Decentralized is a huge buzzword for them. And, I know I sound like a broken record, but it's so important for people to understand. Like even Balaji Srinivasan in his Network State book talks about how it will be decentralized towards a re-centralized center. He explicitly says it. We've got Brock Pierce, who you can look at his speeches. I was just watching one from 2018. He actually says Bitcoin, blockchain, all these quote unquote decentralized types of decentralized autonomous organizations are going to be utilized to create global citizens. There's nothing more centralized to me than creating a globalization of citizens and eradicating and eviscerating any kind of personal and national sovereignty. To
Hmm.
me, that sounds exactly like globalization and centralization. So really what it is H.G. Wells, right? He talked about the that decentralized ganglia of information institutions, which would be like the academic institutions, the media organization, that they would be the conduit to create the world brain. And I think, right, if we ask today, what is that? What are the information institutions today? It's technology, it's the internet.
Hmm.
That's what they keep saying, right? And Bruce Lipton, the evolutionary leader, says that now we have the opportunity to co-create the superorganism of humanity. And he says the membrane will be the internet. And that is what they believe. So,
Hmm. So
yeah.
last time we talked about tokens and tokenization of things, and you
Yeah.
said that they think that evolutionary traps like arms races are preempted by game theoretically stable incentives. So what are these incentives that they're talking about?
So they're saying that right now we're subject to these evolutionary traps. So what I tried to point out in this article is that all of this is predicated, whether it be the spiritual eugenicists who subscribe to social Darwinianism, they say they're anti-Darwin because they reject natural selection because
Hmm.
it's too competitive, right? We have to get rid of the competition. We don't want individuality. That pesky free will thing. We got to get rid of it.
Oh yeah,
Um,
evolution isn't very communism of you, is it?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But then there's obviously the, direct Darwinian, which is more the biological theory of evolution.
Hmm.
And what people like Brett Weinstein, he's a evolutionary biologist. So he subscribes to the theory of evolution. And so prior to even, going into what they believe and what the evolutionary traps are, I really wanted to drive that home that, it's still a contested theory. They act as if this is fact. And, I know it's accepted in a lot of scientific circles and they adopt the theory of evolution as if it's pretty much almost fact, right? They subscribe to it, but it is widely contested. It is still a theory. It has not been proven with any kind of certitude. It is just a theoretical model. But, now that we've gotten that out of the way, based on that theory, they believe that there's all these evolutionary traps, right? That we're going to be, there's natural selection, there's, certain things are going to survive, other things won't. So there's all of these traps, and this is why we're in a competitive world. And what they're trying to, but they say that that's self-extinctory, right? We're going to bring about our own extinction because we're destroying the planet in the process. We're competing against each other. It's a rivalrous society. And of course, the, late stage capitalism is going to end in this, like, you were talking about apocalyptic state, right? Well, they call it the meta crisis. So
Mm.
we're going to go extinct because of the meta crisis, which is
Hmm.
really largely centered around this Gaia religion. That's mostly what they're talking about.
Hmm.
They've got some other things that they throw in there, but that's the main focal point. And so they're saying we need an omni win-win. It's anti-rivalrous. We're all going to, it's the infinite game, which is based on James Carr's, theory of the infinite game. So we can keep on playing and we'll all win, which is really just sounds like a utopia. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, in reality, I think it's going to be a dystopia and a hellscape. Because they're talking about creating an AGI that we parent because it's going to be benevolent. But what is benevolent AGI? Like my idea of a benevolent AGI is not one that creates a complete globalization and a complete uniformity of thought. I'll just finish with this other point because I think it's really, it makes it so clear for people. So Robert Mueller, he was like the Secretary General to the UN for 4 decades. He's where we get the World Core curriculum that's based on Alice Bailey's Education in the New Age. And he wrote it in his like 2,000 ideas that became 4,000 ideas. He really fancied himself a visionary. All these very humble people who have such
Hmm.
ideas of how humanity should function, the new operating system for civilization, but they're very humble. But he said that the whole purpose of the UN is for peace. Right, that's the exoteric messaging of the UN. Right, we're going to have to keep having war so that we can get to peace, but peace is the agenda. But really, what he's saying is that we have to eradicate free will because he's saying that we can't have any dissenting opinions or dissenting cultures or dissenting anything, really, because, like, even if you and I were to paint our vision of like a utopia, just the perfect world, there may be elements in that are in diametric, like, juxtaposition to each other.
Hmm.
So, like, your vision of what a utopia is, there may be clashes with mine. And so, in order to achieve mine, I'd have to eradicate you and your vision.
Hmm.
And that is really what they mean by peace. It means any dissension has to be eradicated.
Hmm.
That doesn't sound so benevolent to me.
That sounds pretty woke cancel culture to me.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
right?
essentially.
Yeah. And you say, so this calls for a Promethean innovation, they say. And every time you hear that kind of talk, it's going to be Luciferian, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gnostic. Uh,
Gnostic Luciferian, right there, becoming their own god. And
mhm,
really, that to me, that is what the transhuman religion. I do think it's a religion. They're creating a cyber Satan. That's what I call it.
mhm,
um, people may disagree with me, but that's what it seems like. They're creating this cyber Satan that they're going to worship, but it's so that they can become their own god. We've got, so you start with this Gaia religion, which is very pantheistic. And then they transition into, I would say, this the New Age and the New Thought become very pantheistic, right? So they become their own god.
mhm.
And then we have the dialectical pantheism now, which is what they're, pitting against each other to spin towards the omega point, which is this transhuman vision where they claim that it's going to be the enhancement of humanity, the augmented humanity. But really, I think it's going to be the extinction of humanity. It's a replacement. So,
Yeah, I I agree with that. I don't trust anything coming out of this because where is this being funded from? All of these questions come from, you said, the Edge Foundation,
yes,
which received funding from Jeffrey Epstein for 14 whole years.
yes,
And he was friends with the pioneers of AI, genetics, and transhumanism.
yes. Yeah,
Space
Marvin
babies.
Minsky,
I'm gonna call this show
pardon?
Space Babies because that's what he was
Space
doing.
Baby.
He was at a ranch in New Mexico, Zorro Ranch.
Zorro Ranch, and what's so weird is he never had children, supposedly.
Hmm.
So either A, he was infertile, and I didn't talk about this in my article because I already made so many speculations, but either he was infertile, which I mean, it's possible. I don't actually think it's likely, and that's just my gut intuition. I have nothing to base that on. Or there was some sort of like weird genetic cloning experimentation going on at that Zorro Ranch.
Hmm.
And my gut says it's the latter. I have no evidence to prove it, but
Well, let's talk about Harvard and MIT for a second because
yes. Well,
the
I do, before you leave Edge Foundation, I want to tell you this too, because this will trip you out.
okay.
So the Edge Foundation did a reboot civilization, uh, like, conference.
Hmm.
Guess when it was? Talk about phoenixing.
What?
It was September 10th, 2001.
Oh no! Oh,
Yes.
it's a very
Yeah.
auspicious date.
I could put see if I can find Edge reboot. Let's see.
I mean, because
Yeah,
if you're a
while you're
tinfoil hat occultist, you're gonna recognize that the big 911
Mm-hmm.
was a huge ritual to jumpstart another America almost, like a reboot, like a great reset, like a mini catastrophe reset. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. I'm seeing if I can find it because it was let's see. It was pretty interesting what they say on the website. Let's see. Age Foundation Reboot Civilization. I found the video, but I wanted to find the front page. But yeah, I would say that's exactly. Oh, okay, here it is. Rebooting Civilization, edge.org. Oh, this might be. Oh, they did another one a year later in 2002. Um, but let's see if we can find Rebooting Civilization for, okay, here it is. Yeah, Rebooting Civilization. It's a seminar. It was 9/10/01. Everything is up for grabs. Everything will change. There is a magnificent sweep of intellectual landscape right in front of us. One aspect of our culture that is no longer open to question is that the most significant developments in the sciences today, i.e., those that affect the lives of everybody on the planet, are about, informed by, or implemented through the advances in software and computation. The Edge event presented an opportunity for people in the various fields of computer science, cosmology, cognition, evolutionary biology, etc., to begin talking to each other, to become aware of the interesting and important work in other fields. So they were, doing this as an influence operation. And then the people involved were just on the front page. I'm sure there were more of them, but there were Mark Hauser, Lee Smolin, and he's very interesting to me because Lee Smolin was part of that Economic Manhattan Project that was funded by the Edge Foundation that Eric Weinstein put together, right, where he did his speech at the Perimeter Institute. And that is where he got connected with Jordan Hall.
Mm.
And it was Lee Smolin and Seb Paquette who were like trying to get them connected. And
Hmm.
that was kind of like I don't know, I would say it's like the ground for which Game B kind of spawned was
Hmm.
that meeting. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, I don't. Jordan Pollock was there, Jaron Lanier, Brian Greene, and David Galenter were some of the other names they mentioned. But yeah, they
Oh,
go on stage.
Lanier,
Hmm.
I just did a
Hmm.
book by him. So he thinks that all of this stuff is not good. So that
Oh, okay.
he
Oh, interesting.
he was a program. What did he do? You'll have to go watch my show, not you, but if you're interested in this show with Ruckus called I Sim, where I cover a whole book about deleting your social media right now because it's so bad for you by Jaron
It's
Duran.
Jaron. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jaron Lanier.
yeah.
Oh,
So
interesting.
he must have changed his
He must have become a
perspective.
whistleblower.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, he says software and computation are reinventing the civilized world, rebooting civilization in the words of David Glenter. It's a software first world, notes Stanford AI expert. This is all the way back in 2001, guys.
Hmm.
An AI expert, Edward Feinbaum, chief scientist of the of the U.S. Air Force in the mid 90s. It's not a mistake that the world's two richest men are pure software plays, or that the most advanced fighter planes in the US Air Force are bundles of software wrapped in aluminum shells, or that the most advanced bomber is run by computers and cannot be flown manually. Everybody in business today is in the software business, but what comes after software? I mean, it goes on, it's pretty long. He talks about
Hmm.
Pinker, but yeah, you guys can look that up. But that's interesting about Jaron.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into him a bit more. Yeah, I saw that episode. That was great.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and
thanks.
he does seem to be really against it. So yeah, he had great suggestions, but
Yeah, he would know. Oh, and at the end, it was like a whole reveal because he said that these people in Silicon Valley worship AI in a weird way, and I'm not
they
with that. Yeah, and everything they do is trying to replace humanity with AI. So this is Epstein funded stuff. So he funds these think tanks. He funded MIT's Media Lab, Harvard's
yep.
program for evolutionary dynamics. Humanity Plus, H Plus, which I wrote about at least 15 years ago, um, to just talk
It
about
was the World
transhumanism.
Transhumanism Organization
Hmm.
Association. That's
Hmm.
what it was originally. Yeah.
And why is he funding all of this? So that he could fulfill his eugenic fantasies of seeding humanity with his DNA through his baby ranch in New Mexico.
Yep.
And New Mexico, you write about how Epstein's empire intersects with Game B's origin at the Santa Fe Institute in New Mexico. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, he was funding it at the same time that Jim Rutt was a chair and Jordan Hall was on the board of trustees.
Hmm.
So, and his connection was Maury Gelman, right? So that he was very close to Maury Gelman, who was like one of the founders of Santa Fe Institute.
Mm.
So it does seem like there was some sort of interesting kind of connection to Game B. I mean, it wasn't like he was directly funding, like Game B, although it seems like he's got his hand in a lot of pockets that were
Hmm.
developing the ideas. I mean, Game B is basically just like a very, Jim Rohn called it a spore moment.
Hmm.
And it's basically kind of like a decentralized think tank at the
Hmm.
moment.
Hmm.
And it has been for the past decade. So, but if you think about it, like it looks like Epstein's had his funding arm in many of these spores, if you will.
Well, he invested $40 million into Valar Ventures, which is a firm co-founded by our buddy Peter
Peter
Thiel.
Thiel. And Eric
And
Weinstein was a manager at the Thiel Capital. Yep.
so this is the third company that I've heard of that I know of that is named after Lord of the Rings. So the Valar
Yes,
are the 14 demigods of Middle Earth who like establish order. He's also got a company named after the Mithril, the elf armor. And that's the name of his capital management company. And then, of course, Palantir is the all-seeing eye of
that's right.
the Dark Lords in Lord of the Rings. So now we've got science fiction again. Um, like you said, he worked with Donald Barr, who was the father of William Barr, the former U.S. Attorney General. And
Yeah.
that book, Space Relations, they call it a slightly gothic interplanetary tale. Now, there's another manosphere cult going around that their inner circle is also based on space tales of Conan the Barbarian.
What?
Yeah, you'll have to watch that show we did with Tristan Hager called Clown World Con Man. How
Okay.
these inner courts of these influencer cults are, yeah, based on human TRAFF, panspermia, the universe with your DNA, traffic slaves, and have harems and space babies. So
Oh,
it's
geez.
he's not the only one on this track, and I know that you can think of another guy who's also obsessed with space and babies. We don't have to name him,
Elon?
but
Oh,
oh
okay.
yeah.
hmm
So,
Yeah, he's going to create the Technate on Mars.
right.
Yeah, that one. But he seems to be doing more of that here on Earth. So, yeah.
So you say they're using evolutionary rhetoric to justify elite oversight, and decoding the source code enables godlike reprogramming of society and biology. And they reference evolutionary biology a lot in Manosphere influencing when it comes to being monogamous. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's apparently impossible for a man to have discipline and be monogamous because of evolutionary biology has
Oh, yeah.
created men to splooge their panspermia everywhere as much as they can all the time and make all the space babies that they want.
So, what's interesting about this, so is Mark Gaffney, who's one third of David Temple,
Mhm.
right? This is the first principles, first values on evolving perennialism, 42 propositions on cosmoerotic humanism. We've talked about this before. You can find it at theofficeofthefuture.com because they predict the future because they're channelers. But the David Temple is really funny to me because they said the reason they came up with the pseudonym David Temple is because they didn't want to have any ego involved. but there's nothing like, egotistical about redefining a universal grammar for the world and creating an anthro-ontology where we rewrite the story of the universe. It's not egotistical at all. But yeah, but Mark Gaffney is the guru to Aubrey Marcus. And this is relevant because we've got, like Zach Stein and Kenneth Wilber are game B proponents. So Mark Gaffney, and he is, adjacent, but Mark Gaffney is the guru to Aubrey Marcus, who is now doing expanded monogamy, or as Mark Gaffney calls it, radical monogamy, which he says is the most sacred form of monogamy. There's nothing more sacred. And this is basically just polyamory, but it's the sacred version because it's under the guise of the guru mentorship of Mark Gaffney. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sounds sacred. It's like all these gurus gone wild, and all they want to do is heal you with their phallus. So
Yeah.
they talk about infinite games where the goal is perpetual play through mutual benefit.
Yeah. So this is the omni win-win, right?
Uh-huh.
That we're in the zero sum game now because we're in this competition. That's why I call it the technological age of Aquarius,
Hmm.
because what they keep saying, like if you go back to Changing Images of Man, right? Stanford Research Institute, they were talking about how we're in the age of Pisces, and Pisces is too focused on the individual. There's
Hmm.
too much competition. We need to move into Aquarius, which is it's the flow, right? It's water. So it's all collaborative, it's collective, it's unifying, and it's not competitive. And so I call game B like the technological age of Aquarius, because they're
Hmm.
using technology to create what they call collective intelligence, but it's essentially a noosphere.
Hmm.
But the omni-win is where they argue that everybody's gonna, win. It's the win-win. It's anti-rivalry. But what's very interesting about this also is that, to bring up Changing Images of Man, it's also really just an extension of, all those EST landmark forum type workshops. I did two of them, and I remember they kept talking about how like there's the red and the black. It's like prisoner's game, prisoner's dilemma. And they kept saying like you can choose the, zero sum, or you can choose win-win. Like they literally said that. I mean, that the lifeboat game, which SEL now uses with children, it's tragic. That game was traumatic for me as an adult. I mean, it was like traumatic. I cried for a week.
What is
Um,
that? I don't, what's the
it's
lifeboat
where,
game?
so like you have they call it lifeboat, and it's like the whole premise of it is like you have to have certain people who will survive on the lifeboat. They give you the whole analogy of the Titanic, and the idea behind it is like certain people will, you sacrifice certain people so that everybody can win. Somehow this is win-win.
Who deserves to
Uh,
go into the future? Is that the game?
what?
Is that the thought game? Who deserves to go into the future?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I found this so incredibly traumatic. Like, but they do this with children now. So, but it's this whole concept of win-win. It's like you can't compete in anything.
Hmm.
And I mean, like, I'm not in favor of like barbaric kind of like competition where you cheat and win at all costs kind of a thing, but there's healthy competition, and it is part of survival, and it is part of human nature. And many like brilliant experiments and advancements in society have come as a result of competition.
Hmm.
There's self competition, there's group competition. What are team sports like?
Yeah.
So this idea that and it's just not realistic. You're never going to have a society where you eliminate all competition. The only way to do that is to eradicate the competition. And that's why I keep bringing up this analogy of Robert Mueller talking about peace and what it really means, what the UN vision of peace is. It's
Hmm.
really you eradicate all dissension, all distinction. So
Hmm.
you become the one, right? And then that's what the UN actually has a symposium on this too. They call it manifesting the oneism. I have that in my conclave of the hierarchy article. Yeah.
It's
So
like that if you give AI the task of world peace, then the simplest way to that is just eradicate everyone, and that's its idea of peace. Like, how many movies have they made where the computer the ultimate solution, right, of
Yep.
the AI is just kill everyone.
Yeah. Well, and I was so creeped out. I saw Megan 2.0 and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
did you see it?
yeah.
Okay. So they ended it, they literally end it with game B terminology. Like I like almost jumped out of my seat. I was like, they used game B terminology.
What did they
And
say?
they said that we need to she like testifies before, Congress or whatever. I don't know what it is, but it's like
Uh-huh.
it looks like it's like Congress or something. And she says, so we need to pass laws where we learn to parent the AI so that we can co-evolve.
Mm.
And that's literally so right now I did a like it was supposed to be a 5 minute video, but I'm very long-winded. So it was 30 minutes, which is
Uh-huh.
very short for me. But I will do a longer live stream on it. But there is a document and it is Game B. One of them is a direct Game B proponent. The other one's a member of Club of Rome. A bunch of these people have gotten together and they've created a global constitution for AGI. And they talk about how we have to parent the AGI to create benevolent AGI that is going to be unified, right? This is all about creating globalization and global citizens. But they literally say that we have to parent the AGI and co-evolve with the AGI. This is
Hmm.
in this global constitution. And the creepiest part of this constitution is they talk about they're all, in for the Gaia religion. So they talk about how humans are destroying the planet and we're creating the self-extinction because we're destroying the planet. Nobody seems bothered to look at the Club of Rome's like 1992 document that literally says that they made it up, that it's a lie.
Hmm.
It's literally in their own words, but because they needed propaganda to create a common threat, common enemy. But they said that because we're doing this, that AI is being trained, and because of their capacity for information gathering and assessment, that they actually might come up with better ethics than humans, and be more better stewards of the planet. And so, therefore, we might have to be submissive to the ethics of AI. So this
Hmm.
sounds like a cyber Satan to me. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Submit to cyber Sharia,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yes. That's yeah.
And it, oh, here's what I was going to tell you. You just reminded me, you have to watch Alien Earth
Oh, okay.
because this is a TV show that takes place like almost right before the movie Alien.
Oh, okay.
And the corporation owns the city. It's exactly what you're talking about. There's a city that is owned by like a Mark Zuckerberg character, a boy genius, young tech lord, uh,
Okay.
and he's like the king of that. And so they're not countries, they're competing corporations now. So
Yeah, so Sob Corpse.
yeah. So
Oh
watch
no.
that, you're gonna freak out. So Megan 2, the end of it's talking about Game B, and Alien Earth is a predictive programming of these bicam what were they called? Bicameral? What are they?
By
No,
Campbell?
not bicameral. What were they? Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I know.
Neocameralist.
Oh, Neo-Cameralist. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
city
That's
states, not bicameral.
that's Curtis Yarvin. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, all these words, like I'm glad you're making a glossary because it's
yeah.
like these tech words, and then they even say that it's hard to explain to their puny human minds, and attempts to do so may be poisoning the well.
Yes. Yeah.
So you
So
can't
they're
just lay
essentially saying,
out the plan.
yeah, because you're coming from game A, so you're already projecting onto game B, so you're poisoning it. And Daniel Schmachtenberger basically says we have to like use social engineering, because people are already too immersed in game A. I'm paraphrasing, but it's essentially what he said. And then there was Jake Ruiz who talked about he was working on and this is when he was talking about the game B film, and he was saying how like he's working on a Disney project. And he says, yeah, I'm just going to Trojan horse Game B into that project and every other project. They're talking
Mm.
about transmedia and how
Hmm.
that's what they have to do. So essentially, they're talking about social engineering Game B. Yeah.
Yeah, these Trojan horses, and they come in the form of cartoons,
Yep.
children's media,
Yeah.
anime, Annie, Valentine. I mean, look what the crack team at Doge, what are they up to this week? Last time I checked, it was a AI babe walking down the beach in American flag bikini. So this is what top men are doing online for the public, right? For
Oh boy.
you, you get more AI corn and what is it? Chat GPT induced psychosis,
Yes.
right? That's a thing now.
So I do think that's a real thing, but the other thing that I'm really concerned about with it, and people aren't really focusing on this aspect, but yes, I don't doubt that people could, their psychosis could be enhanced by befriending ChatGPT, but it's also a feedback loop, right?
Mhm.
So they're data mining from you, and then they're programming you so they know what buttons to push, and then they're also connected to a greater grid, so they can be reporting you. And I'm very opposed to like any kind of institutional commitments that isn't voluntary. I know there are people who need help, but I think families can do interventions, communities.
Oh, they
I'm not
want to
in
bring
favor
back
of forced.
asylum.
Yeah, I know they're trying to do that, and I don't like the forced incarceration, like or forced asylum. I don't like that at all. Like if anybody's seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like if you go in there sane, you will come out crazy.
Yeah.
And so I really have major issues with this whole forced and ChatGPT or any kind of AI has the ability to be a Stasi reporting you.
Hmm.
And who knows what buttons they push to get you there to say whatever needs to be said for you to be considered insane, quote unquote.
Right.
So I think it's really dangerous.
If you're too feminine, you could be insane. If you
Exactly.
can't control
Yeah.
your emotions, if you don't like, there's a million qualifiers to
You
this.
opened your eyes too wide. You look angry.
They
Well,
say
what kind
they say I blink too much.
of
Why do you blink
yeah.
so much? So let's talk about transparadigmatic Christianity, which is the Christianity is a worldview bridging innovation and tradition. And this is where Jordan Hall comes in and the game B Christianity
Yeah.
and the new Christian that they are positing with Doug Wilson and Joel Webbin and these characters.
Yeah, and Jordan Hall is the church. He said it's like a Southern Baptist church that he joined, so it's in that wheel. It's a similar wheelhouse, I guess. To I don't think it's officially like a C or a C church, but
Mhm.
it does seem to be in that umbrella or adjacent. But but yeah, I mean, his version of Christianity is very strange to me. I mean, it's a little like kind of redolent of like Peter Thiel's Christianity.
Mhm.
He's talking about like network states as being he did a whole speech for the Startup Societies Foundation in Prospera, Peter Thiel's Prospera, talking about network states. He did two of them, talking about Game B and network states. But the latter one that was more recent, because less than a year ago, when he had his quote unquote conversion to Christianity,
Mhm.
and he talks about Game B Christianity. He's actually done videos like titled Game B Christianity, and I don't know how Game B is commensurate with Christianity. First, like just on the very basic level, any kind. Forget like any sect of Christianity, whether it be Orthodox or Baptist or Protestant, whatever. Regardless, any Christianity, because they're talking about collective intelligence. And that eradicates free will. So I don't see how Christianity and Game B, I don't know how you reconcile those two. But he did this whole speech talking about how we should use liturgy. And he doesn't use the word communitarianism, but it is essentially communitarianism. So for people who aren't familiar with communitarianism, this is where we got like Bush's compassionate conservatism. This is a branch of communitarianism. It goes all the way back to the 80s. Rosa Koire did a great like expose kind of distilling this back in the 80s, talking about communitarianism is the future vision for the UN. but it comes out of third way politics, right? So it really, and Rosa Corey said that actually, and very astute of her to recognize that back then. But third way, again, for those who aren't familiar, I did an article. It was called The Technological Age of Aquarius. Third way dream or digital dystopia. Spoiler alert, I think it's digital dystopia.
Yeah.
But Anthony Giddens wrote a book. He's a Fabian socialist, right? And he wrote the book on third way politics. And he says it's always left of center. And he says it's the radical center. And so he said it has to be left of center for these social and emancipatory goals. And so when you talk about communitarianism, it is this concentration of the radical center, I believe, that's steering towards technocracy. That's what it looks like. All of these people are arch technocrats.
Hmm.
And they use this, they call it the radical center, but people think, oh, it's these moderate, like, these are the same people. Like, it's not, I'm not here with, jokers, clowns to the left, jokers to the right. Here I am in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's not that. It's a radical center. And they're using technology to create this hybridization of essentially the network states. That's what it is. So they say it's like community combined with the balancing out individual needs with the community. But they're doing it through technology. And I'm sorry, once you're entering into a smart contract, there's no individual. Like, good luck opting out of a smart contract that's recursive. Like,
Hmm.
I just don't see it. Like, we already have these click-in contracts that are constantly upgrading, they're updating. Nobody can possibly read them because you'd be spending hours every day, all day. But we all use these services, whether it be the social media platforms or whether it's like your rent a car. It's everything has these like click upgrade serve terms of services.
Hmm.
And in it, you're constantly ceding your rights, your liberty, your sovereignty. So they're using property rights and contract law to do this. So it's very concerning. But all this just to say that he did this speech where he talks about how we should use liturgy, to create this community. But he's really talking about communitarianism. It's not liturgy in the sense of, the Christian biblical sense of liturgy. This is
Hmm.
really talking about communitarianism and third way, and technocracy. So it's
And
very deceptive, in my opinion.
and all the things that we're talking about are very like anti-Christian values. I mean, artificial surrogates and robo wombs, and there's not a priest alive, I don't think that would bless that. So
I think women would be, because they're just utilities, that's just, for bodily functions
well,
with
speaking of that,
robots, like,
if if I can go on a tangent like 30 seconds real quick, I was reading
yeah,
this thing about the pyramid text in Egypt and it was very parallel to what we're seeing with these ideas because they viewed women's bodies as too sacred to be governed by themselves alone. So a woman's body was governed by the priestcraft and the state, and there was very strict laws about like procreation and fecundity. And like if you didn't produce enough children or male children or any children, you were subject to like punishments or you were sent to the temple to be rehabilitated, which meant like sexual prostitution in the temple, all kinds of crazy you know, just policing of birth and biology, and women do not have free will over their body in ancient Egypt. And I'm seeing this themes come up again, and it's just really
yeah,
weird to watch.
yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, it's really terrifying. And on top of it, they're doing all these things, which this will be a really quick tangent, but I mean, we know how much they're poisoning people. We see the fertility rates like plummeting, right? I mean, that they're plummeting.
Yeah.
And then somehow like a woman's worth nothing if she doesn't have children, but
Hmm.
meanwhile you poison them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So
I wrote that down to talk about on the very last page, so we're gonna
okay.
circle back around to that sentence
Okay.
real quick. Yeah, real quick. So what we're talking about is tech techno-Satanism, which the Temple of Set is big on that. I don't know if you've looked into them. So they have what is called the Black Flame, which is the insertion of technology to quantum leap evolution. And they
Quantum
picture,
stuff.
yeah, they picture this as the monolith from 2001, which was, the thing that arrived that set in the 2001 story, it arrived on Earth and it brought the caveman to enlightened man, right?
Mm,
So this is
okay.
the idea of the black flame, something that jumpstarts another wave of evolution. And Epstein's stuff fits exactly into this. He dreamed of seeding humanity with his DNA. This is just like James Bond villain in the movie A View to a Kill. His name was Max Zorin, played by Christopher Walken, but he was also trying to seed humanity with his own DNA. So,
Sorry.
yeah.
The quantum stuff, I did a whole thread on Twitter about like how the common theme, like 'cause it's such a buzzword between the New Agers and like Q, and they talk about the financial quantum system. There's
Mhm.
quantum everything. I won't read it if you don't want to, because it's a pretty. I'm not that long, but I go through like all the parallels of it, and
Mhm.
it does tie back to like Pythagoreanism and Mithrianism. But I'll just say this: I'm very concerned, and CERN too, right? CERN's all into the quantum stuff. And they're rewriting the story of the universe just like the cosmoerotic humanists are. But I'm very concerned, and this is just a theory, but I'm really concerned with the tokenization and where that's going with because the infrastructure is being built for that. He signed the Genius Act. He's got the Stable Act and the Clarity Act that are coming. A lot of elements of the big beautiful bill, which is not so beautiful, but it's very big, are really laying the groundwork, the infrastructure, the legal infrastructure for transitioning into this kind of not just digital currency, but really a tokenized, not just economy, but everything.
Mhm.
And my big concern is that you've got people who on the quote unquote right who are still all in with this Q, like Jasara Nasara, and we're going to get the quantum financial system. And when the quantum financial system comes, you're going to get your debt jubilee. And I am really worried that they're going to use that debt jubilee to entice all these like pro MAGA who still subscribe to Q, and are going to say, oh, well, we'll give you like double the tokens if and you won't have to pay the mortgage on your house.
No
But
more
what happens
student
now? You don't
loans.
own your house.
Yeah, yeah. No more student loans, no more mortgage, but you don't
Exactly.
own anything,
Exactly.
right?
I don't know about the be happy part, but the you don't own anything. We're really close to there. So anyway, sorry, tangent, but
Well, speaking of money, all this money's getting funneled into these prestigious, Harvard, MIT, and CRISPR is going to be a big one. If you don't know what CRISPR is, that's going to be
yep,
in the news. So just watch for that. He also funded Jeffrey Epstein, I'm talking about. He also funded a
yep,
weird dating app, right?
yes,
Based on eugenics and STDs to prevent unfit children.
uh-huh,
What a
yes.
weird.
The dating app. I forgot the name of the app, but it's an actual app.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's just total eugenics. So you can like select for your positive eugenics genetic selection.
So what we're seeing here is I think that we figured out the quantum leap in evolution is the merging of synthetic technology with biology, right?
Yes.
And
And there are synthetic biology conferences like every year. Singularity University does all of these like, you know, conferences on it. This is a whole field and all over the world, and they're grooming a whole generation of like college students and grad students in synthetic biology. So yeah,
And then we have Sophia. Now, I talk about her a lot because she creeps me out. So this is the robot
she's
with
creepy.
rights. She's got a UN title. In 2023, her and other AI robots had a UN press conference in Geneva where they discussed the potential for robots to run the world more efficiently than humans, right?
So Yes, so Ben Goertzel is one of the people who's writing this constitution, this global AGI constitution.
Hmm.
And he's already had meetings with the World Economic Forum, the UN, talking about, how we have to create the benevolent AGI. And of course, yeah, he's behind the Hanson Robotics, the Sophia. I don't know, his ideas are very creepy to me. But yeah,
Well,
she's
go ahead.
creepy.
Creepy,
No,
yeah.
no, go.
Speaking of creepy, he was into cryonics. That was another
Yes,
one of his ventures, and he wanted to freeze his head and penis,
yes.
right?
Yeah, I think this was also tied to like the brain initiative. Weren't they
Hmm.
doing like these cryonics with the brain and this whole experiment where they were like preserving Lenin?
Yeah,
They're obsessed with Lenin. I don't
yeah.
know.
So what you're talking about is all part of this conscience evolution, the noosphere, or the hive
Yes,
mind, or the global brain. And this is just what, like the Borg of Star Trek.
yes,
Like one
that's
of us.
exactly what it
One of us.
is.
And
Right.
they want to replace humans with technologically enhanced entities in a very Malthusian culling narrative.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think you're going to have to be able to prove your usefulness in the future. I mean, maybe not for a couple more decades, but some people are going to be on the chopping block because they, like you said, they've been sterilized or they are broke or, whatever reason,
Yeah.
they don't have the right genes.
So what I really tried to lay out was that, I mean, all of this is eugenics. So you've got the left-hand path. Even in game B, you have this still dialectic, and you've got the spiritual eugenicists, right? The Barbara Marx Hubbard disciples.
Hmm.
Barbara Marx Hubbard would talk about how conscious evolution, which her Conscious Evolution Foundation was actually funded largely by by the Rockefellers, but she would talk about how like the people who are too selfish and lack empathy can't evolve, and so they're not going to ascend, so they just have to go, they have to disappear. But what is her definition of selfishness? It's like literally people who are individual and focused on like self growth and
Hmm.
yeah, like it's just individuals. And so she had this whole idea, though, if you're not part of this psyche network, this is a term I've done some shows on that, but that comes out of Maslow, which she said that Maslow taught her about psyche networking, and it was so exciting because it was better than sex, and she coins this term supra sex. But she talks about how those people are going to die. It's exactly like Blavatsky and Bailey.
Hmm.
They will get subsumed. So these are the spiritual eugenicists, and this is the conscious evolution, and a lot of them are direct disciples. A lot of these game B people, like Zach Stein, Mark Gaffney, these are direct disciples of Barbara Marx Hubbard. In fact, they co-created the term cosmoerotic humanism. They talk about that. And then you have these it is game B, which is the left-hand path, but within that you get these dialectics, and they believed in institutional reform. So they claim that they're much more logical and the rational scientists. But we know rationalism it's just the one wing of that dialectical path of the mysticism.
Hmm.
And because I would argue complexity theory is not a hard science, even though they're saying it is. But they're subscribing to evolutionary biology, so they believe in natural selection, and that that we have to escape these evolutionary traps, which is this. Which is natural selection and
Hmm.
competition. We have to transcend that. So either way, though, you get eugenics. It doesn't matter which path. Ultimately it's the one who have ascended will survive, and everybody else is going to be cold. And Barbara Marx Hubbard said a fourth of the universe, a fourth of the planet has to be cold, and be the pale horse that decides who dies.
Oh man.
It's yeah,
Yeah.
and I linked to a video that where she talks about, I don't know if it was a if it was a slip, but she literally says eating babies.
Whoa,
I mean,
weird.
she creeps me out. I
That's
don't know.
crazy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So she said 1/4 of humanity must be limited, and we, as in the Barbara Marx Hubbard and them, we are in
Yes.
charge of God's selection process for Earth.
Yep. That's right. this
Yikes.
is the co-creation. But they're very humble people. They keep talking about how humble they are, but they believe they're going to co-create with God. They basically become gods. On the website, the wiki for Game B is the opening for it. The introduction is Stuart Brand opening line for his Whole Earth magazine from 1968, where he says, "We are as gods. We better get good at it." And then he updates it in 2015, and he says, "We are gods. We might as well get good at it."
Hmm.
There's nothing hubristic about this at all. Like,
And they want everyone on Earth to take the gene therapy by
yes,
any means possible, even if it's a mosquito or a tick or you eat it or like the GMO in your crops or whatever. Like you thought you dodged a bullet by not getting that stabby. Well, they've got many more vectors to deliver this gene therapy to you, right?
they do. They're any by any means, right?
Hmm. And then there's the whole genetic prediction services. So they're really messing with God's territory in the womb here and free will and women's bodies and stuff like that because now they want to predict with the CRISPR and all of that and the designer babies. So this is like Gattaca. This stuff has been in the news for a long, long time, but it's just becoming
Yes,
mainstream now because of infertility. And let's see,
yes.
let's get there. What else we got? H.G. Wells' World Brain, Intellectual Dark Web.
Yeah, the intellectual dark web was a whole big section. I've always had kind of the theory that it was an influence operation for Game B.
Hmm.
I've also thought that it was an intelligence operation. I can't prove that, but
Uh,
it looks that way to me. All roads seem to lead there. But it, Andrew Cohen in his Manifest Nirvana does basically say, he doesn't use the words influence operation, but he pretty much says that it was the emerging for Game B. And then we have the intellectual deep web, which is what intellectual dark web morphs into.
hmm.
And the intellectual deep web was created by David Fuller, who one of his first documentaries was on Jordan Peterson.
Hmm.
And he used to do documentaries for the BBC, which isn't like a smoking gun that it's an intelligence operation, but BBC is usually linked to kind of like state media. Um, I don't know. It looks curious to me.
Well, I mean, it's like all these podcast bros that you talk about. The Game Bee blends the Gnosticism, the Jungian archetypes, the
Mhm.
pseudo-Christianity, the Neoplatonism, all
Mhm.
into this very attractive uh, video game generation is going to
Mhm.
love this tokenization and
Oh, totally.
online living and surrogates. So it's you can see how they have been conditioning us to accept
Yeah,
this Ready Player One type of reality, right?
exactly. Yep, totally.
And so Homo Amor, you say, will navigate the meta crisis through tech augmented collective flourishing. And the Eros Mystery School.
That's Mark Gaffney and Aubrey Marcus,
Uh-huh.
Erasmus School.
And the path of the erotic mystic. So this is very also like podcast bro because they're very
Yeah.
into these themes of like m mystical shamanism, uh
Hmm.
psychedelic bros,
Yes.
polyamory, free love, all of that.
The Burning Man
Burning
culture.
Man, yeah. And so this is all just a Trojan horse to enslave you. And
Yeah.
if we can just, tie this up with a big bow at the end, I wanted to talk about, like you touched on a couple minutes ago, um, the infertility crisis and, just how they have, like Jay's lectures in all of these globalist books, it's always about depopulation. How can we sterilize people? They've gone and done it, and now they are at the point where, like, so many people are sterilized, they're switching it up and they're like, well, if you can't have children, you're worthless. So it's like, thanks, you just got done, ruining everyone's fertility, and now you're going to tell them that they don't matter if they can't reproduce, right?
Yep, exactly. Problem, reaction, solution. Yes.
How many Hegelians can you find? So, at the very end of this show, and I want to thank you for these like really cool, very well-researched articles that just lay out the entire thing in uh,
Yeah.
plain language. Now, a lot of what do you call them, liberals, they're very worried about this, and rightly so, because this Christian nationalism stuff sounds really whack. And it also, they've have identified that this is very much like The Handmaid's Tale. So have you ever read that book or watched the series?
I've seen a little bit of the series. I know my mom and my sister were really into it, but I know a little bit about the premise and
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
So actually in my 20s, I mean, I was a big reader as a child and young adult, but I really was a fan of Margaret Atwood because I thought her writing style was very good. Um, it's
Mhm.
like it's like reading a dream almost, or so, the way
Yeah.
that she describes things, it's very creative, and I think she's a
Vivid imagery. Yeah.
yes, it's super talented literature. And one of the first books I read of hers actually was Handmaid's Tale, and this was in like 2000. Okay.
Okay.
And it was terrifying. I'm like, oh, that could never happen here. That's just so crazy, right?
Eh,
But
Here we are.
Handmaid's Tale was based on the 1979 Iranian Revolution and the theocratic regime change. So she actually said that everything in this book happened somewhere in real
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
But she took the Islam and she changed it to Christianese,
Yep.
and that's where she got the premise for Handmaid's Tale. So, I there's actually in the book it says Iran and Gilead are two late century monotheocracies, and even the parallels with like the clothing that they have to wear, the handmaid's dress is very much like the hijab that they had to put on in Iran. And the
Yeah.
wall in The Handmaid's Tale is like the public executions that were happening in that, tumultuous time. And the things that Webben is calling for, he wants to publicly execute women for lying.
Yep.
And in Handmaid's Tale, it's they're saying it's anti-Christian, but it's not because there's nothing in there that's Christian. It's like just it's a veneer. There's no crosses, there's no Christ, there's no Bible, there's nothing like it's just very like Old Testament Gilead talk, and they say under his eye. So this is the greeting that they give each other, the loyalist, under his eye, and may he open the womb and the fruit and stuff like that. It's not Christian, but
Right.
it it is Chrislam,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, Handmaid's
Exactly.
Tale is the American Sharia that we are talking about. And who do you think installed radical Muslims into power in the Middle East? Who could that be, Courtney? I mean, I'm talking about Iran, Afghanistan, just the whole 90s and early 2000s was all about getting into the Middle East and meddling. And it was Western clandestine, CIA, Black Ops, stuff like that. And
Well,
so,
and who wrote the Migration for the Benefit of All when he worked for the UN between 2000 to 2002?
who?
And it was the blueprint for the UN with this whole Islamification of the West. That would be Eric Weinstein.
Oh, well, that's why I
Yeah.
have you on because you're wicked smart. And you know where I'm going with this. And I'm not trying to be a feminist or against monarchy or anything like that. But this American Sharia Islam stuff is the technocracy. And the birth rates, why is everyone concerned with birth rates all of a sudden now? Like we go on these
Mhm.
I'm not going to name names, but like high profile podcast, and they're like, well, the best version of Christianity obviously has to be the one with the most birth rates. And like, well, why is that your qualifier? That's kind of weird.
Mhm.
But how fast do you think they could apply those same tactics of stripping women in Iran to here? Because it's the same shadow government
Yeah. I think
underneath it
very,
all.
I think very fast,
So,
scary fast.
I mean, that's what I'm asking. Like, if the birth crisis is crisisy enough, then they can take the rights of the women's bodies and say it, like,
Well,
just like in ancient Egypt, your body is too important to the white race or to this or whatever. You cannot govern it on your own because we need you to produce.
Well, let's just make this pretty concrete. So we've got Trump in the first 5 months, right? I've already talked about the Genius Act, Stable Act, Clarity Act, big beautiful bill, deregulating all of it, AI, right?
Don't
He
forget
said
Project Stargate.
Project Stargate, yeah, AI precision medicine. We've got MAHA, which is Make America, it's MABA now, is what he
Hmm.
says. Make America Biotech Accelerate. He actually used the word accelerationism in MABA.
Come on,
Uh,
dude.
so so all these people who thought they were getting, Make America healthy again, it's really about, he's talking about making everybody wear the wearables for the Internet of Wearables that are tied to the Internet of everything,
Hmm.
right? But we've also got Trump and look, it's not for me to judge. Like I think that the whole IVF industry can be a huge blessing to people. There are many because so many families are struggling, but he's now talking about having insurance cover it, right? And when we start doing the insurance industry, now again, I know it can be a huge blessing for people. Like there's a lot of good that can come out of it. However, we know the whole insurance industry is a total scam. The analogy I use for the insurance industry is, you remember we had the British East Indian Company? It was
Hmm.
essentially a cartel. Like the drugs back then were like tea and coffee and opium and
Oh
maybe
yeah,
cocaine.
that's why we have
Uh,
heroin because of them.
Yes. And what did we have back then as the insurance company was essentially like the cartels that covered for them, right?
Hmm.
Well, then they created these insurance companies, and like life insurance is really like a death industry. They're betting on your death, right?
Hmm.
I don't mean to be crude about it, but like that's essentially, again, I know it can help people. There's always the double-edged swords in a lot of these things. But if you just look at the facts of like where we've gone, the trajectory, so you've got this industry that's now going to be incentivizing people, and you're putting it into this. I mean the regulations that are going to be put on it. So I just think it's a very slippery slope because you've on top of the. It's one thing to do IVF, but then it starts becoming the genetic testing. Then it starts becoming, ectopod life, ectolife pods or robots, or I just think what's happening when you have, and that whole big beautiful bill. I know they did push back on the deregulation. They said like that we can't have so what did they do? Now it's through the states, but they incentivize the states through funding. So the states will lose funding if they don't if they regulate their AI.
Hmm.
And this is how we got seatbelt laws. Remember, they say New Hampshire was the only one that didn't follow suit, but basically they told all the states, okay, fine, if you don't subscribe to our federal, because it's not constitutional, but our federal seatbelt laws, then we just won't give you any funding for your roads and that's what they do. That's the loophole.
Mm.
So I'm just pointing out, like, very, we're seeing boots on the ground, how this could be a very slippery slope towards this path, which is this regulating of bodies, human bodies, and using technocracy to create this transhuman synthetic biology life.
Well, look at this. Can you see that? The robo womb?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the Chinese. Is that the Chinese one
I
or?
think this is just an artist rendition of
Okay.
what they're
Oh,
working on.
because
But
I'll pull up the. Let me see if I can. I'll pull this one up, but it's literally like a. I don't know where I have it. I have it right here, but
well,
it's from the Daily Mail.
hmm.
And it's in China. My feed is going blank, but okay, here it comes. Let's see if I can find it. It's uh Hmm. But it's literally a robot, and they're, pregnant robot. So
Hmm.
I'll see.
Well,
Uh,
the
you
caption,
you
while you
go,
look
and
for
I'll see
that,
if I can find it.
yeah, while you look for that, I was just going to tell you the caption on this picture says, once they successfully make this robot that can give birth, it's over for you, ladies. And this got like 1 million likes or something on it. Like that's what they think of women is they're just a baby production. And if they can find a more agreeable way to make humans, they're gonna do it and replace women. Did you find it?
So I don't know. Can you see
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yep.
Right? And
Yes.
so the caption on it says, "Would you use a robot surrogate?
Yep.
China developed the world's first pregnancy humanoid that's capable of giving birth to a live baby."
Yeah, so top influencers are discouraging men from getting married until the laws are fixed that favor them because I mean I'm sure you've heard of all these grievances that, they keep the children away from the men and the divorce and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
they're trying to tell men marriage is not a good deal anymore, but you still need to have kids because the universe deserves to be seeded with your DNA, right? But you don't
God.
need to marry any women because you can't trust them. Instead, they want you to opt for harems of baby mamas,
Oh,
and if you can afford them, right? If you can afford five
right.
or six women with 20 babies, then go for it. Um, or use a surrogate wife for breeding, and they even say that it's better to get into a relationship with a transgender for pleasure and status and sex because they're not going to lose their figure in pregnancy. They're not going to sue you for custody. They're not going to expect you to marry them. So, at least
Wow.
one top influencer has advocated for having a transgender as your partner instead of an actual woman because, the birthing people aren't hot anymore.
What?
Oh, yeah.
This
Once you
is
once you give birth, you are
awful.
used up. You are no longer sexually attractive. So these
Right.
reproductive models, these surrogates, this is the advocate for the new family, which is you're just some kind of like space lord with a harem and a litter of space babies.
Hmm.
And the trans thing, I mean, this is, we all know it's ubiquitous throughout history and royalty and nobility. Like they were swapping a lot of gender roles. Um,
Yes.
and this is leading to robotic wombs because they just got done with the mass sterilization campaign of the last 100 years. So you've got your Planned Parenthood with the abobos, you've got your pushing of the birth control on every young girl as soon as they start menstruating. I mean, they did that to me, like as a teenager. They're just
Oh
like,
yeah, they did that to me too.
yeah. So, and then they double down with the stabbies, making everyone infertile. I mean, they proved that a lot of those, VAX just go straight to your reproductive system,
Yep.
right?
Yes, they approved that. And then there was also the incidence of all the people who didn't get it, but had all their cycles messed up.
Hmm.
And they did studies on that. I mean, yes, it was somewhat, I mean, it wasn't a double-blind placebo, but it was pretty extensive anecdotal survey. And I mean, yeah, it was pretty awful,
Yeah.
the effects.
So now you're worthless unless you're the type of person that people can come out of. And
I'm
not
not
only
a,
that, women in the workforce are about to be very affected by AI because they make up a, big chunk of the service industry jobs that AI is going to take over. So what
Mhm.
all of these newly disenfranchised women going to do if they can't sell their body for sex, they're going to have to sell it for reproduction. If they
Mhm.
can, even if that's even an option, that's going to
If
be
it's right.
selling your body for surrogacy. I swear that's going to be coming up in the future because of AI. And, instead of OnlyFans, your womb can be harvested by elites. And now I'm not talking about loving families having babies. This is more
Right,
like
that's, yeah.
the reproduction process in Brave New World.
exactly.
right?
That's what I'm trying to say. Like I get it if, healthy, like happy families want to go through that
Big
process, but it's
families is perfect. That's lovely. Like, but robo wombs, surrogates, CRISPR, gene editing, space babies, designer babies. This is all very
the
abomination.
designer baby thing is so creepy too. And apparently there's a very famous like ball player who was one of the first ones.
Oh,
I'm
really?
blanking on his name, but he talks about this and he's like a very famous like ball player. But his parents basically like genetically selected him to be like a, genetically enhanced creature.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And so,
I think he's in his 40s now, so he was one of the first.
wow.
Or first public ones anyway. Yeah.
In Brave New World, they had the classes of people
Yep.
based on the Greek letters, alpha, beta, delta, gammas, your
Yes.
classes, and they're already getting kids to do this. Are you an alpha male? Are you a beta male? Are you a sigma? Are you an alpha woman? Like, so they're already segregating into this like Brave New World funnel. And they have the young kids grouping into these identities already. They want
Yes.
to restrict women from public places, just like in Afghanistan. I watched this video of a TikToker who went to, like Afghanistan. There's no women outside in the park, like zero. And he's like, where are all the girls? And they're like, they don't come outside. Um, so this is something they don't want to see women at all because it's a very GAY agenda at the end of the day,
Yes,
a
that's
very
exactly what it is.
anti-woman in all ways. And all of
Yes.
these things that women
An
shouldn't.
anti-human.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, they have the whole laundry list of things that women shouldn't do, including have a job, post online. Eventually, it will be leave the house without, your male escort or whatever, your robo escort, if it even lasts that long. But I mean, this is just a glimpse of where we're headed if so many people buy into overthrowing the government with this Christian nationalist.
Yes. Yes. So many of these, yeah. I'm feeling very like I can under like a lot of Christians complain, like they're being persecuted. I'm like, it's because so many people are like operating in this kind of capacity that's giving it a bad name. Like this
Yeah.
is not doing any kind of service to, yeah. And then of course we have my experience today with like mega church taking my material and not like crediting. I mean, I'm great that the word is getting out. And it's not like even about like my credit, but like that's the right thing to do. And then we could work together. And they've got some of the material wrong too.
Yeah.
So like I would like it to be appropriately disseminated, and if you give the original source, then people can do their own research. But yeah, there's a lot of people using Christianity as a cover and a grift. I don't know how else to say it, but it's a grift. And it doesn't feel very Christian to me. I
Oh,
don't think
yeah.
grifting is Christian. I don't know.
I mean, Bible warns about wolves in sheep's clothing, and
Yeah.
this technocracy is exactly that. And new things
Yes.
pop up every day to confirm that we are exactly on the right track. And wicked smart, my friend Courtney has two great
Mm,
articles up right now on Substack, at least
thank you.
about the Phoenix and about Epstein. And tell us what you're doing next.
So I'm working on a glossary
Mhm.
that will be coming out soon. So I'll get that. I am going to do a longer live stream on this whole global constitution for AGI, where they think we need to parent it to have a benevolent AGI. I find it so incredibly creepy. So I'll be working on that. And then I have a couple of more articles I'm going to be working on in this vein. I've done some shows talking about like, Society 5. And so I'll be working on putting some of that together. And I'm co-authoring a book. So that's around this topic. So yeah, so all of those things. And I'm going to be working on also putting some of these articles that are very long into book form that people
Oh,
can,
nice.
they're not have to read it on a screen. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Because
Well,
the algorithmic oracle, a lot of people ask me to make that available, like where they could print it, and
uh-huh.
apparently it's hard to print from Substack. So I started formatting it, and it's 120 pages in a book. So,
Well, that's
so
half a
it is
book right
long.
there, almost, right?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
book. No,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep these as like mini books,
Oh,
and yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, look for that, and we definitely will have Courtney back in the future. And we next up is me and Donut doing mystery schools and micro cults with the Face Lords. It's already recorded, so I'm not promising nothing. But we're gonna air this one, and then we're gonna air Donut after that. So stay
Oh,
tuned.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, Donor was telling me that he was going to do a show with you.
Yep.
I was
Yeah,
excited.
we had a great show. So after
Oh,
this one, and then Donut. So thank you so much for coming, Courtney, and
thank
I hope this
you.
won't be the last time.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.